Yes, good evening, everyone. So, welcome to the second session of financial management. And I think in the last class, what we have covered up, we have discussed about the basic part, what is financial management is all about, and the conceptual understanding, what is the utility of financial management. Okay. So, what we have covered up, I'll give you a quick snap about what we have covered up in the last session. When we discuss about this particular subject, financial management, we are only talking about how the funds can be managed. Okay. So when we discuss about any organization and whenever they are planning for their project, for their upgradation, for their expansion, they always need to plan for their fund management about how to arrange the fund and how the fund could be deployed in the market or in a particular certain project. Okay. So the planning of funding along with its deployment as well, it is a very basic concept about financial management. The two major aspects about financial management is all about your procurement of funds and utilization of funds. Now, when we discuss about the procurement of funds, it is nothing but simple arrangement of funds, or you could say sources of funds from where you can actually raise the funding, raise the money for your business or for your project in the organization. Now, when we discuss about utilization of funds is basically all about deployment of funds, how the company can effectively use those funds in order to generate utmost profit out of it. Okay. So when we discuss about all this particular topic about financial management basically deals with these major two objectives, that is procurement of funds and utilization of funds. Now, the first point that is about the procurement of funds, that is called the arrangement of funds we are talking right now. Now, when we discuss about arrangement of funds can be, you could say, as many sources which the person can look after. Now, which particular source of funding would be beneficial for the owner, or you could say for the company always need to look after that which particular funding, or you could say which particular option would be best suited in terms of sources. Because as you know that whenever we need to start a business or whenever the business needs some funds, they always need to look after certain sources. These sources might be internal sources or maybe external source of fund arrangements. Okay. In the last class, I think we discussed about these major six sources of funding, which includes your honors fund, debentures and bonds, hire purchase and leasing agreements. We discuss about angel financing, venture capitalists, and we discuss about the commercial banking as well. These are the major sources from where the company always you could say actually raise the fund for the organization. Now, these raising of funds may be in the form of debt or maybe in the form of equity. Okay. It may be the part of ownership or it may not be part of ownership on which the company need to pay some interest on it. So it is important that whenever we are or whenever we are arranging funds or we are searching for the source of funds, we always need to look after these major sources of funding. That is called the procurement of funds. Okay. The second major head about this financial management aspect is all about your utilization of funds. Now, utilization is extremely important because arrangement is somehow quite easy process, but when it comes to its deployment, when it comes to its uses, because deployment of fund is as crucial because once the company is basically investing some money into any project or into any product development or into any, you could say, other aspect or other, you could say, avenues that the company is looking after, the important concept arises in the case of utilization of funds is all about whether the company is in condition in order to generate maximum profit or we can say optimum profit out of it or not. It is all about the returns which the company is getting it out in the case of your funding. Okay. So always remember in the case of financial management, we always need to focus on these two parameters. That is procurement of funds, which is called arrangement of funds. And the second part is all about your utilization of funds, which is called your uses of funds or deployment of funds. Okay. After that, we discussed about this particular flow chart of financial management because in financial management, the company or the finance manager is always concerned about these three major decisions regarding financing, investments, and dividend. Okay. We'll discuss one by one all these particular points. Now, when we discuss about the first decision making, that is called the investment decisions. That is called the investment decision. Now, we always need to look after that investment. First of all, what is the meaning of investment? Investment is all about whenever the company want to invest their money, whenever the company want to deploy their fund, they block their fund in all such projects, in all such, you could say, avenues, from where the company may generate some long-term returns out of it. So investment decision is again one of the most important aspects of financial management, which is the concern area for any finance manager in the organization. Now, when we discuss about the investment decisions always deals with major two methodology. That is, first part is your capital budgeting. Second part is your working capital management. When we talk about this particular part, investment decision, that is capital budgeting basically deals with whenever the company needs to invest or company is planning to invest into any long-term project, they always need to look after that is the project or is the, we could say, the assessment which the company is looking after, is it fruitful, is it beneficial, or is it give the expected return which the company is looking after. So capital budgeting is basically a process, or you could say a methodology, with the help of which the company can decide whether we need to invest in certain projects or not. Because all these, you could say, gray lines you can see right now, these all are the numerical units of your syllabus. Okay. The first part is your capital budgeting. The second important aspect is about your working capital management. The working capital management is basically deals with the management of the company's current assets and the current liability. The company must need to maintain sufficient amount of current assets so that they can meet their routine liabilities, or you could say routine your payables, in a smooth manner. It basically deals with the amount of cash which the company needs to maintain in order to, you could say, generate, in order to, you could say, meet all those contingent liabilities which might arise on day-to-day basis. So basically, investment decisions deals with capital budgeting and working capital management. This is the very first aspect in the flow chart of financial management which related with the investment decisions. The second important part is your financing decision. Okay. Now, financing is a simple term. If we understand what is financing is all about, financing is nothing but the arrangement of funds from where the company can arrange the fund for the organization. Now, in order to understand these particular financing decisions, the company have three basic numerical methodology with the help of which they can decide whether we need to arrange the fund, whether we should go for this particular option of funding or not. So there are basically three major methods, that is cost of capital, capital structure decisions, and third part is called your leverages. Okay. The third decisions which comes under category is called your dividend decisions. Okay. Dividend is first of all nothing but whatever the profit which the company is generating from their, you could say, financial year. After that, the company may decide whether we need to invest the fund in, you could say, whether we need to, you could say, use the fund for some project, or whether we need to distribute those profits to the shareholders, or whether the company needs to maintain some reserve for the future contingencies. So dividend decisions basically deals with two major methodology, which called dividend policy and retained earnings. Okay. So always remember these particular gray, you could say, block, which you can see on my screen right now. These are the major numerical topics of your syllabus. And definitely after the completion of this theory, we'll start this very first topic, that is capital budgeting. Okay. So this is basically the part which we have covered up in the last class. Okay. This particular decision making and these all methodology which we have covered up in the last class. Is there any query to anyone, please, till this point? If it is so, you may ask me right now. Else we can just continue with the in-depth discussion about this particular topic. Is there any query to anyone, please, till this moment, till this slide? Yes, students, please kindly confirm. Is there any query to anyone, please?
No, sir, it's okay.
Okay, perfectly fine. Thank you so much. Now we will discuss all these topics one by one in detail, what exactly the meaning of all these topics, and what exactly we gonna to study in all these particular units. Okay, so let's start with the first part right now. That is your investment decisions. Now, as we talked about this investment decisions basically is one of the important aspects of financial manager, you could say, capabilities, or their, you could say, their potential, that whether the particular manager, or you could say particular individual, should be in should be in the state of mind that they need to decide among the alternatives available from the market, that which particular project, which particular, you could say, option is best suited for the company. I'll give a very basic example for this particular topic in what is investment decision. For example, if the company is looking after, in order to, you could say, purchase a machinery. In order to purchase a machinery, definitely it's a fixed asset. And whenever the company is basically investing in all those assets, it requires some, you could say, handsome funds, or you could say some good amount of funds in order to procure that machinery in the organization. Okay. When the company looking after some options for that, let's suppose, for example, if the you could say the investment in all such machinery is in billions. Okay, the company always needs to take a proper care before taking any decision, that whether the company need to purchase those machinery or not. The important aspect in this category of investment decision, like whenever the company need to invest their fund into long-term assets, whenever the company need to invest their fund into long-term assets, and as you know that once the company invested, once the company has selected certain options, definitely it is important that you cannot reverse your decisions. So any decision making, when the company need to procure any long-term assets, they always need to keep in mind that decision making regarding long-term assets investment can be done with the help of capital budgeting decision. So capital budgeting is basically one of the most important methods in any organization whenever the company is looking after for a long-term investment in the fixed assets I'm talking right now for the organization. Opposite to that, whenever the company is looking for short-term asset selection, short-term assets, we talk about debtors, we talk about bill receivables, we talk about any, you could say, amount to be received, cash management, all these important topics. Okay. So whenever the company need to plan about their short-term assets, decision regarding, or you could say consideration regarding short-term investment decision may come under category of second method of investment decision, which is called your working capital management. Okay. So always keep in mind, whenever we talk about the investment decision from the perspective of finance manager, if it is for long-term period, 5 years, 10 years, definitely the method which we use always is called your capital budgeting. And whenever the company want to decide, or they have to select that whether the company has to go for selection, or you could say management of their short-term assets, the important method which comes under category is called your working capital management. And these are the basic two methods which we have. For long-term decision making, we have capital budgeting, and for short-term asset selection, we have working capital management. I hope so. Am I clear with this? Everyone? What is investment decisions? The short term and the long term, which is include capital budgeting and working capital. Because in detail, after the completion of this theory, we'll discuss the various methods which comes under this category. Because capital budgeting, I think we have 5 to 6 methods to discuss. Working capital management, we have 2 methods to be discussed. Okay. So we'll discuss the numerical part, but right now we are just going through with the base building of this particular subject. Is it clear, everyone? If so, then we'll start the first part, that is what is capital budgeting. Okay. As I told you, the capital budgeting is the most important method with the help of which the company can plan for their long-term assets investment. Okay. So selection of the long-term assets, selection of, you could say, your fixed assets investments, and these fixed asset selection, because these assets would be exist, or would be, you could say, utilized in the company for the longer period of time. And companies always, you could say always in the consideration, because they need to decide, they need to select such alternatives which will give you the optimum return to the organization. So important thing in this case, the capital budgeting is the long-term decision making for your fixed assets investment. Okay. Now in this particular process, we have first step of selection, that is about the selection of assets, that which particular assets will give the best benefit to the company. Okay, selection of assets means among the alternatives, the company needs to decide that which particular assets will give you the optimum benefit which the company is expecting for the future of the organization. The second one is about the uncertainty and the risk. Now, uncertainty and the risk is all about the failure of the machinery, or we may say that if the company is purchasing any asset, the important part is that the selection of any asset, the selection of any project should be in such a manner so that the risk should be as minimum as possible. Risk may be of anything. Risk may be of, you could say, technological upgradation. Risk may be of, you could say, selection of the asset. Important consideration in the case of risk selection, or you could say risk management, is how the company is basically selecting, or how the company is basically planning about their future investment in such a manner. And the finally is all about the minimum rate of return. Minimum rate of return is nothing but whenever the company is basically selecting any asset, the important part is that the expected return or expected profit which the company is looking after, that must be generated from that particular investment. So this is basically all about this capital budgeting. What is the meaning of capital budgeting, and what are the different, you could say, stages through which we can actually plan about this asset. As I already told you, the capital budgeting basically consists of major methods, which includes your payback period, average rate of return. Then we discuss about NPV, that is net present value, IRR, which is called internal rate of return, and the fifth method is called your profitability index. So always remember, this method includes basically 5 major methodology, with the help of which we can decide that whether the selection or whether the process is fruitful for the company, whether asset is fruitful for the company. That decision may come under category of your capital budgeting investment decisions. The second category of decision we have, that is called the working capital management. As I told you, working capital management or working capital is basically all those decision making which comes under category of your current assets and the current liability. The company always need to maintain sufficient amount of current assets so that they can meet all those liabilities in a timely manner. Okay. The important consideration in the case of current assets and current liability, or we can say working capital management, that the company must need to maintain sufficient amount of liquid assets so that they can meet their liabilities in an effective manner. Okay. Always remember, I think, this working capital cycle, because when we talk about any organization, their cycle of cash collection, which is in this manner. Okay. For example, you are purchasing raw material on credit basis, definitely your creditors will generate it. The material will be converted into work in progress. You are paying wages and salary. Your finished goods is prepared, and definitely you will sold those goods into the market, and your data will generated. So always remember, it's a working capital, means how the cash cycle basically it is being designed in an organization, from generation of cash to the payment of cash, receipts of cash and the payment of cash. So always remember, the working capital cycle always deals with how the company can maintain the cash balances, how the company can maintain their current assets so that they can meet those current liabilities in the organization in the effective manner. So this is the very first part we talked about right now: investment decisions, capital budgeting, and working capital management. Is there any doubt to anyone in this particular topic, please? What is working capital? What is capital budgeting? And this process. If it is clear, we will move to the next part. Is there any query to anyone, please, in this investment decisions? Yes, student. Is there any query to anyone, please, in the investment decisions? If not, then definitely we can move to the next part. No query, please. Yes, student, please kindly confirm. Is there any query to anyone? I hope so. Am I audible to everyone, please? You can even post your queries in the chat box as well. Okay. Yes, friend. Is there any query to anyone? No. Am I clearly audible? Please kindly confirm as well. Student, please kindly confirm.
I think it is clear, so you can move on to the next slide, please.
Shaq, I think please kindly post your message chat box. You're not clearly audible actually.
Yes, sir. I think no one has a question, so you can move on to the next slide.
No, it's clearly audible. We have no question. I have no question. You can
Okay,
move
no
on.
question. Fine, fine.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay. So let's go to the next part then. That is the second pillar of your financial management decision making, which comes under category of your financing decisions. Okay. Now, when we discuss about this financing decisions, financing is basically when we talk about the simple terminology that how the company is basically deciding their capital structure proportion. Okay. Now, when you discuss about the word capital, capital is basically the fund which is being invested or which is being arranged by the owner in the organization in order to start the company, in order to start the business, or we may say that in order to expand your business, what are the different sources from where the company has arranged the funds. Important aspect in the case of financing is the combination or the proportion of debt and equity. Now, what is this debt and equity? First of all, we need to understand. Okay. Always remember when we talk about any fund invested by shareholder or the owner of the company, it is called your equity financing. Any fund invested by the owner or the shareholders of the company or the partners of the company is called your equity capital. Okay. Any fund which is being arranged in the form of loans, in the form of debentures, in the form of bonds, or any other debt instrumentation on which the company is compulsorily liable to pay the interest. So that is called your debt capital. So always remember when we discuss about the financing decision, the financing decision basically talks about the composition of your debt and equity. Now, when we discuss about the debt, as I told you already, the debt investment are those investments in which the company always looking after to pay the compulsory interest. For example, let us suppose you have started your business by your own fund of 10 lakh rupees. Okay. Along with that, you have actually arranged some loan of 5 lakh rupees from the market as well. Okay. So basically the total capital of the company is 15 lakh. 10 lakh is the fund which is being used or which is being, you could say, invested by the owner. That is 10 lakh. That 10 lakh rupees is called your equity capital. And the 5 lakh rupees of fund which you have arranged in the form of loan from the bank, that 5 lakh rupees will be called your debt capital. So always remember the financing decision basically always deals with the composition of your debt capital and the equity capital in the organization. Now, when we discuss about this decision making, that what should be the right proportion, or you could say the best proportion, we can say, in terms of debt and equity combination. Always remember when we discuss about any organization, it totally depends on what type of risk exposure which the company want to look after. Because as I told you that whenever the company is arranging the debt capital, it's an obligation for the company, even though if they are not generating profit, they are liable to pay the interest on the debt capital which they have generated. For example, you took the loan of 5 lakh rupees. Now, even though if the company is generating profit or not, it doesn't matter at all. The company is liable to pay the interest on those debt capital compulsorily. Okay. So the selection about the percentage of debt and percentage of equity. For example, if you talk about 100% capital, out of those 100% capital, it is very, very important that what should be the criteria of equity and debt. It may be 70 equity, 30 debt, 60 equity, 40 debt. It may 50-50 as well. Now, always make sure the decision regarding the selection of the percentage of debt and equity it totally depends on the company's profitability. If the company, you could say, having the very smooth, you could say, flow of funds or flow of income, definitely they can go for higher debt. But if the company is having, you could say, cyclical or periodic earning or seasonal earning, definitely in all such cases, company must have to go for higher equity as compared to debt. So it totally depends on company's profitability or how they are generating profit out of it. Okay. So I hope so it is clear what is financing decision is all about. It is all about selection of your debt and equity. Whether the company have to go for higher debt or higher equity totally depends on company's profitability or their flow of generation of the income from the market. Am I clear with this, please? What is the basic meaning of this financing decision? That is debt and equity composition.
Yeah, it's
Student,
clear
please
to me.
kindly confirm. I think if you'll cooperate in between, it would be far better for me to proceed ahead. I think so.
Yeah, it's clear. Please, you can proceed.
Okay, okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Anyone else, please? Any doubt? What is financing decisions? Student, please kindly confirm.
I think, sir, you can proceed.
Okay, thank
Everything
you
is
so
clear,
much.
so you can proceed.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Now, as I told you already, that when we discuss about this debt and equity composition, the selection or the percentage of debt and equity, it totally depends on how the company is basically deciding about their risk profile. Because always remember, if the company is going for higher debt, definitely they have more obligation in terms of interest payments. That debt, you could say increase the debt capital. It is always advisable to the company that they must have to go for higher debt only when they are having the higher cash flow from the operating activity of the business. Operating activity means from there the company can generate the profit for the organization. So whenever, as I told you already, the decision regarding the percentage of debt and percentage of equity is basically based on these four major considerations. The first part is called your risk and the cost. Okay. Now, when we discuss about the risk is all about whether those funds which is being raised by the company, is it debt fund or the equity fund? If the company is in a condition to expose themselves for higher risk, means they are going for higher debt. If the company thinks that the business is basically cyclical in nature and might be possible that business may be down, may have a downfall in the future, in such a cases, you always need to stick to the equity capital. So risk is basically the consideration of debt or equity, totally depends on the company's profile right now, that where the company stand right now in the market. Okay. The second part which we have is the cost. Cost is basically all about the percentage of, you could say, interest which you're supposed to pay on any equity or debt fund. For example, if you are raising the loan from the bank and you are paying 9% interest to the bank, so 9% per annum is the cost which you are paying on the fund which is being raised by the bank. For example, if you're going for equity means I'm talking about shareholders, I'm talking about partners capital, I'm talking about proprietors capital. In such a case as well, you are liable to pay the interest or dividend to your shareholders as well. So again, the cost is basically nothing but the percentage of return or percentage of interest you are liable to pay on any source of your funds generation from the either from the bank or from the internal sources of your organization. Is it clear the first point? I think so. That is risk and the cost. Risk in terms of debt or equity, and cost in terms of the percentage of you could say interest which you are liable to pay to your shareholders or even to the bank we talk about. The second part is all about your level of control. Now, what is level of control? Level of control is all about the decision making power for the owner in the organization. For example, as I told you, the composition of debt and equity is always a crucial decision for the company. Now, if the company is going for higher equity and lower debt, definitely the owner having more control over it, because 70% equity, 30% debt, the owner having, you could say, more control over policy making, over decision making, or over, you could say, controlling various operating activity of the organization. But when it comes to higher, you could say, debt and lower equity, in such a cases, the control basically is more towards the debt investor as compared to the owner of the company. So the level of control is all about the decision making capability of the organization, whether it is, you could say, higher in the case of equity, definitely more with the owner of the company. And if it is higher debt, definitely the decision making power always, you could say, settle down or always tends towards the debt investors in the organization. That is called the level of control, mean decision making power. The third category about the decision making in terms of debt and equity proportion, that is called the cash flow. Now, when we discuss about the
Sir, your mic is mute.
You're on
Mic
mute,
is
sir.
muted.
You're on mute.
sorry, extremely sorry, I think so. Yes, yes, sorry, students. I think till which part we discussed? Level of control we are done.
Yeah, the cash flow, third one.
Yes, so yes, sorry for that. The third category is the cash flow. Cash flow is basically nothing but the generation of the income from their sales activity, or you could say the operating activity of the business. Always remember, the cash flow of the company is totally depends on what type of business they are dealing in. If the business basically deals in the, you could say, necessity goods, or the goods which is being required by the customer on yearly basis or throughout the year, we can say, in such a cases, it is important that the company may go for higher debt as compared to equity, because they have sufficient amount of income generation, or sufficient amount of, you could say, source of income generation from their operating activity. So if the company having higher cash flow throughout the year or throughout the business cycle, definitely they can go for higher debt, because they are in a position to pay the interest or to pay the debt obligation towards the bank or towards any, you could say, debt capital investors. But if the company or if the business dealing with fluctuation in their sales, fluctuation in their income, in such a cases, it is always advisable that the company may have to go for higher equity as compared to debt. There is a third decision making, which is based on cash flow. The fourth and the last part, when it comes to the decision making regarding debt and equity, is called your flotation cost. Flotation cost is basically the cost of arranging the fund. Okay, for example, if you need to, you could say, access the loan from the bank. Okay, what you will do? You will pay commission to the broker, you will pay charges to the broker, or whatever, you could say, the mediator charges which you pay in order to generate the fund for the company. Even like if you talk about a debt generation, bonds, debentures, or any other debt instrument, whenever the company needs to incur some cost in order to generate, in order to arrange some fund for the company, they always need to incur certain cost on that. That cost may be commission, any charges, any, you could say, fee which they have to pay to the government or any concerned authority. So always remember, in order to generate, whether it's a debt capital or the equity capital, the company must need to incur certain costs in order to generate those funds. That cost basically called your flotation cost. That cost may be in terms of brokers, commission, underwriters fees, or any other, you could say, charges which they have to pay in order to generate those funds from the market. Is it clear, please? The four major considerations about debt and equity proportion, which option is best suited for the company, they need to actually analyze the company's standing on these four grounds. Is it clear? The financing decisions, debt and
Yes, please.
equity, and the
Yes.
four major considerations for the same. Now, the last portion in the case of financing decision, it is always remember that these three major questions which always need to be resolved whenever the company is going for any debt equity changes or any changes in the proportion of debt and equity. That where, when, and how the fund shall be raised. Where means the sources, when is the right time to generate the sources or arrange the fund, and how this fund would be deployed, how the fund would be effectively used in the company for any concerned project which the company is looking after. Always remember where, when, and how. Where means the sources, when means the time to arrange those funds, and how means how the fund could be deployed in the market. Is it clear, please, about financing decisions now? Then move to the next one, dividend decisions.
Yes, please.
So we are discussing about this financing part right now. And these are three major methods which we have in this particular part: cost of capital, capital structure, and leverages. Is it clear, please, everyone?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. The last part now, that is about the dividend decisions. Now, what is dividend? First of all, we need to understand. Now, when we discuss about the dividend decision is nothing but when we discuss about the operating income of the company during a financial year. Now, operating income in terms of the profit or the income which the company is generating from their sources. Okay. Now, these operating income or these income which the company is generating from their sources, basically company may have to divide those profits among their shareholders, or they have to pay the interest in the form of, you could say, loan which they have taken from the market, or any other obligation which they need to pay. The dividend decision is basically such a decision in which the company or the finance manager have to decide that whether the profit which they have generated during the financial year, what is the percentage of profit which you need to pay to your shareholders, or you could say to your equity shareholders or to your share owners, we can say. Okay. The decision regarding the dividend declaration or dividend percentage declaration, it totally depends on the company's policy or company's future perspective as well. Because if the company want to keep a reserve of the fund, definitely in such a cases, they always need to, you could say distribute the dividend in a lower percentage. For example, if the company is planning to launch a new product, the companies want to expand their businesses, in such a cases, they need to maintain a reserve. Okay. So always remember, we have two major decision making. Either the company will pay the payouts to your shareholders, or either they will retain the earnings. So you can see this line right now. Okay. The retained earnings and the dividends. It totally depends on the company's policies or company's perspective, that whether they want to divide the profit or distribute the profit among the shareholders, or whether they want to retain those profits for the future contingencies, for the future projects in the organization. So this dividend or retained earning decision making, what should be the actual balance which the company need to maintain? That decision making will come under category of your dividend decisions. As you can see as well, because even though, like when we talk about this decision making, like rather not to give the dividend to their shareholders, but again, that may actually reduce the interest of the investor towards the company, because it is always very crucial that the company always needs to declare the dividend to their shareholders on timely manner. Because if the company won't declare the dividend, definitely in such a cases, the investors may be reluctant to invest their money into the market. Okay. So in such a cases, it is always very important that the company must have to decide that whether they need to declare the dividend or not. Now, as you can see that, like when we discuss about the declaration of the dividend, whenever the company is declaring the dividend and they are distributing the profit among the shareholders, because of that, definitely shareholder wealth will increase. And definitely this is the moment where the company can actually attracting the potential or the existing investor, or even they can attract the new investor from the market, because companies declaring the handsome dividend to their shareholders. Okay, and if dividends are attractive, if the company's policies are attractive, definitely investor will take the keen interest in order to, you could say, divide their profits among the shareholders. Okay, so always remember that whenever we talk about any decision making in terms of dividend, it is the decision, you could say, whole sole discretion of the finance manager, that they need to maintain a balance between the retained earnings and between the dividend declaration for the organization. I hope so it is clear as well. What is dividend decisions and the balance between retained earnings and the dividend declaration.
Yes.
Am I clear with this, please?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So now I think we have covered up these investment decisions, financing decisions, and dividend decisions. In order to take these decisions by the finance manager, they always have the quantitative methods available in order to decide which particular option would be best suited for the organization. I hope so. These decisions are clear, and definitely these topics which are mentioned in the boxes right now, we'll discuss one by one as soon as we'll proceed ahead for this particular syllabus. If it is clear, then I'll just move to the next stage of this graph. Okay, because we are done with this decisions. Now we'll go to the risk and return analysis and how the company can achieve profit maximization or the wealth maximization. Yes, student. I hope so. It is clear to everyone so that we can move to the next topic now. Everyone, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you so much. Now, as this flow chart is basically the, you could say, the building block of this particular subject. Okay, we have actually decided, or we have actually put a light on that what are the major consideration, the major decision which the finance manager must have to take, and he's the one, or she's the one, definitely is the whole sole responsible authority in case if the decision may go in the wrong direction. Okay, now important change over here about the analysis. Okay, because as I told you, the finance manager is always concerned with financing, investments, and dividend decisions. These decisions are basically very, very crucial in order to analyze risk and return relationship. And these risk and return relationships helping the company in order to achieve profit maximization or the wealth maximization. Okay, so you can see that the next topic which we have now is all about your risk and reward or risk and return analysis. Always remember, higher the risk, it's very thumb rule or very, you could say, common parlances. We always use this language that higher the risk, higher the return. Higher you are exposing yourself in terms of the market, more chances you have in order to generate the return. I'll show you one graph right now that what is the basic scenario, how the company can actually generate or how the company can analyze their risk and return profile. Okay, so you can see right now on my screen as well, the risk and return. On the x-axis, you can see that the risk profile is given to you. Returns are given to you. You can see that it's a very common, you could say, phenomena, or you could say common understanding about this particular topic, that when we discuss about this risk and return trade-off, at higher the risk, higher the return. You can see that there are certain options are given to you or certain investment options are given to you. How the less risk which we have in the cash or fixed deposit in the bank. If we move further, fixed income fund, that is debt fund, equity mutual funds, real estate, peer-to-peer loan, direct stock, alternate investment funds. You can see that because as we talk about from the perspective of the investor always have numerous amount of options or numerous options we can say when we come to their investment decisions. It is very, very important that the investor must need to keep in mind that the percentage or the exposure of risk which they can digest, which they can actually, which is acceptable from the risk profile or from the profile in which they belong to. Because when we talk about the investor's profile, when we talk about their portfolio, these portfolio decision making or these investment decision making is always varies from person to person. What is their expectation or what is the basic purpose behind their investing their money? So always remember the risk and return profile or risk and return proposition. You always need to keep in mind whenever you are designing or whenever you are deciding your risk profile or when we talk about their portfolio management in the organization. I hope this topic is very simple. The risk and return pedagogy we are talking right now. Because the most crucial, most you could say vital and very you could say sensible decision which each and every investment manager or even like being a general investor or the normal investor, whenever if I have to invest my money either in the real estate or in the gold or we talk about in the share market or any other you could say investment options available to me, definitely I have to take those decisions by keeping in mind about my future expectation from all those stocks or from all those investments. I hope so this risk and return profile is also clear.
Yes, yes, please. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. Is there any query to anyone else, please, till this point? Because last half an hour, definitely I'll give you just to go through with all the topics. And in the last half an hour, we'll discuss all about the doubts. Okay. So I think I'm proceeding to the next topic. And from 6:30 onwards, we'll definitely discuss about our doubts only. Okay. So let's move to the next topic now, please. As you can see that this flow chart, decisions, analysis of risk and return, and this risk and return analysis, this risk and return proposition is basically helping the company in order to achieving the goal or expected target which they are looking after for the future. These targets may be profit maximization or it may be wealth maximization as well. Okay. Now, when we discuss about this profit maximization, we'll discuss all these topics now. This last phase of your process of your investment decision we'll discuss now. So you can see that the objectives of financial management, because when we discuss about this particular options of investment, along with the options, definitely the composition of your different, you could say, investment option, or you could say when we talk about your portfolio, the important aspects comes in the mind that whether the company needs to go for profit maximization or they need to go for wealth maximization. Now, the first part, what is profit maximization, we'll discuss right now. Always remember, profit maximization is basically a process in which the company is always concerned about the increase in the earning per share of the shareholder or earning per share which the investors can achieve out of it. The concern area in the case of the profit maximization is how the company can increase their profit irrespective what type of practices which they are using so. Okay, it may be ethical, it may be unethical as well. Important discussion in the case of profit maximization, the company is not at all concerned about the CSR activity. They're not at all concerned about the customer expectation, and make sure always this profit maximization is basically more about you could say, not a fruitful concept, we can say, from the perspective of any organization. Because nowadays you can see that the investors, the customers, or even the market players, or even you could say your peer competitors are the key ingredient or the key factors in order to decide what type of, you could say, perspective or what type of, you could say, expectation which you always need to look after. The important things come under profit maximization is the company is always concerned about their profit irrespective of the expectation of their accounting users or the company's internal or external users. The major drawbacks about the profit maximization that they are not at all concerned about the workers, about the consumer, or about their internal or external users, those who are directly or indirectly associated with the company profile. The second, you could say, disadvantage of profit maximization, that in order to achieve the highest amount of profit, or you could say the profit expected profit that the company wants to generate, the company may follow some unfair practices, some unethical practices, some corrupt practices in order to achieve that profit expectation of the company. It may be possible that the company may be more biased in terms of stakeholders' benefits, stakeholders' wealth maximization. So this profit maximization is more about, you could say, an old concept, a traditional concept, which may be, you could say, fashionable 2 to 3 decades back. But now the most important thing which the company must always need to keep in mind is about the wealth maximization. You always need to think in the win-win situation for the company and also for the customer, employees, government, suppliers, or even any entity, those who are directly or indirectly associated with the company's operations. Okay. So what is wealth maximization? First of all, we need to understand. Wealth maximization is basically more, you could say, more prominent way how the company can generate the profit, but parallelly or simultaneously, they are also concerned about shareholder wealth maximization, or you could say shareholder wealth improvement. Or even though when we discuss about this wealth maximization, the company is always concerned about the, you could say, the aspect in terms of all those, you could say, concerned users or concerned authorities, those who are directly or indirectly upset with the company. They may be your supplier, they may be your customer, they may be your employees, or even your, you could say, your partners, your shareholders. By keeping in consideration the benefits of each and every individual entity, those who are associated with the company's operation, you always need to take care of each and every expectation, what they are expecting or what they are looking after from the company. Okay. In the case of, you could say, wealth maximization, the company is basically more about, you could say, or more concerned about CSR, that is corporate social responsibility. They always need to make a balance or keep a balance between the company's profit generation. Like you can say, various companies nowadays, like they are doing some social work, they are doing some work in the field of education, they are doing work in the case of, you could say, medical, doing in terms of, you could say, any infrastructural facilities. So always remember, rather to keep a focus only on the profit generation, the company always need to take care about the company's profitability along with the wealth improvement of your shareholders, the staking of your customers, the expectation of your employees, and all other entities, those who are directly or indirectly associated with the same. I hope so. Am I clear with this? Because we have discussed this chart right now and we are done with this. Analysis of risk and return. And these risk and return can help the company either in order to achieve only profit maximization or wealth maximization. But we could say more, you could say, practical concept, more fruitful concept, more, you could say, considerable concept is all about your wealth maximization. I hope so. I am done with this particular flow chart, and each and every particular item, each and every terminology is clear to you in this flow chart, please. Yes, students. Am I clear with this?
I just have a question, please.
Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, how is it with the process of making profit in case of wealth maximization? Like in the profit maximization, you can use any unethical practices or corrupt practices, which is like there. But how is it in the wealth? It should be ethical all the time, like uncorrupted. You have to be ethical all the time, or how is it like? You can even be unethical in that sense, or in case of the wealth maximization process?
What I've actually understood from your query, that whenever we talk about any unethical or any corrupt practices, these practices may be in terms of, you could say, company's internal policy. Like, for example, if I'm talking about the claim that the company is doing to their customer. For example, if you are providing a product to the customer and the claim or the benefit which you are providing to the customer might not be, you could say, as per which is being given by the company. For example, if you talk about any cosmetic brand, if you talk about any, you could say, a bundle of benefits which you're providing to the customer. It may be possible that company may be doing some adulteration, like even if you talk about the medicinal products. Okay, there are a possibility that whatever you could say claim which is given by the company, that claim may not be true. Or okay, claim means the benefit which the company is providing to their customer. So that would be again one of the part of, you could say, unethical practices. Okay. Second point, if you talk about from the shareholder perspective, that is the perspective from the customer side. From shareholder perspective, like for example, being an investor, if I'm investing into your company, okay, my major consideration would be that up to what extent I can generate the profit, or I can, you could say, receive the dividend or the profit at the end of the financial year. Okay. If the company is claiming that we will provide 15% dividend at the end of the accounting year, but company is only giving 10%, they are actually not fulfilling their, you could say, promises which they have given to their investor. Again, it would be, you could say, one of the unfair, you could say, mechanism which they are dealing with their investor. So always remember, like we talked about the customer perspective and the investor perspective. Like same we can talk about from the employee perspective as well. Like what are the, you could say, basic working conditions, the increment, the bonuses, or even the, you could say, the job profile on which the company is actually settling their employees in the organization. The important consideration is that whether the claims or the benefit which they have actually proposed at the start of the financial year, and whether the company is fulfilling all those claims or benefits or not, the matching, or you could say the mismatch between the actual and the expected may be termed as, you could say, unfair, corrupt, or unethical practices.
Okay, please, thank you.
I hope so it is understood now.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there any other query, please, from this flow chart? Because this is a very basic building block of this particular subject. Is there any more query, please, to anyone? If not, then we'll move to the next topic. The application of financial management. Yes, students.
Hi, this is Shweta.
Yes, Shweta.
Hi, my query is regarding wealth maximization. Regarding profit maximization, it is considered as will have to increase cost per share, right? And how is the practical approach for wealth maximization in that case?
Like if you are raising the question about the cost per share, see, cost per share is all about the dividend or the profit which you need to provide to your shareholders. Okay.
Yes.
Like if you remember, like whenever the company is basically declaring, see, there are basically two types of dividend. One is the proposed dividend, which the company is deciding at the initial of their financial year, that this is the proposed dividend, for example, 15%, if I'm supposed to give you in this particular financial year. That is a proposed dividend. It might be possible that the company may generate some higher profit and they may declare the interim dividend as well. Okay. Or it might be possible that the company is suffering some huge losses and they won't be able to, you could say, meet their expectation or meet their proposed dividend, which the company may declare to their dividend shareholders. See, important thing in terms of cost is all about the percentage of dividend or percentage of return which the company is providing to their shareholders. See, if we talk about, like, for example, this pandemic, everyone knows that the company, each and every, you could say, the area of concern always suffered huge losses in this pandemic. If certain, you could say, condition which is being acceptable by the shareholders, and because of that, they are not able to receive the expected profit, it is somehow considerable. But intentionally, if the company is not declaring the dividend, or if the company is not providing dividend to their shareholders, because see, always important consideration over here is all about the potential investors and the new investor if you want to attract. Okay. For example, if you are not fulfilling the expectation of your existing shareholder or the potential shareholders, definitely you won't be able to attract the new one. Okay. So always, in order to keep a balance between the existing shareholder and the new shareholder, the company always needs to look after for the wealth maximization. Because if they will only think about profit maximization, means they are not concerned about their shareholders. And one more thing, Shweta, I think in this case, If the company is basically more of a debt capital as compared to equity, the decision may be quite different. Okay. But if the company, you could say, more dominantly towards the equity share capital, for example, 70% equity, they always need to keep on priority of their shareholders, because otherwise they definitely would be more reluctant in terms of their further investment in the organization.
Okay, okay.
I hope so it is clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Is there any more queries with this particular topic, please? Okay, so I'm moving to the next topic. If it is so, please can note it down and we'll discuss after this particular topic now. Okay. Now, the next and the important part is the areas of financial management. Okay. The key application of the financial management we are talking right now. Okay. Now, the first part, as I told you, that is estimation of financial requirements. Now, when we talk about these financial requirements are basically the funds which the company is basically wanted to arrange in order to expand the company, in order to invest into some new product development, or in order to invest certain new project, or even you could say any investment into the markets. The company should always be proactive when it comes to their arrangement of finance. Arrangement of finance means they always need to be proactive whenever they are looking after for certain investment in the future. For example, if I have to expand my business in the next financial year, definitely I need to plan about the blueprint of that expansion plan and in this financial year itself. Okay. So estimation of financial requirement is basically a proactive decision, or you could say decision in advance, so that the company can prepare a blueprint in order to achieve that particular task, that particular project in a fruitful or in the smooth fashion. If they are looking for, let's suppose, for example, if they are looking to, you could say, launch a new product into the market, launching a new product definitely requires the costing in terms of research and development, its production cost, its you could say cost related to operation of factory, and when it comes to transportation, whatsoever it could be. So in order to launch a new product as well, the company needs to incur certain cost on that whether that particular product would be acceptable, whether that particular product would you could say fulfill the desire or the needs of the customer in the market. Because ultimately, whatever the you could say product which is being launched by the company, it should be always from the expectation of the customer only. Okay. And the customer expectation must need to be fulfilled. If not, definitely customer will actually switch to the competitor. So in order to retain your customer as well, it is very, very important that whatever decision which the company is taking, it is important that the company must need to take a decision in such a manner so that by keeping in consideration all their future, you could say, avenues or future, you could say, projects which they need to keep in mind. So estimation of financial requirement is all about the proactive decision in terms of their arrangement of funds for you could say, for any project, for any new product, or even if they want to purchase some fixed assets, land, building, any investment in the real estate, they need to plan in advance. It is a very first important decision making when it comes to areas or the application of financial management. I hope the first point is clear, because the most crucial point of this particular topic. Okay.
Yeah, it's clear, please.
Yeah, sure. The second point is about decision of capital structure. We discussed already this particular point, that the composition of your debt capital and equity capital is totally depends on company's consideration or company's control. Because if you remember, we discussed about this particular topic in terms of these four major grounds. Okay. That is about the risk and cost, level of control, cash flow, and flotation cost. On the basis of these four grounds, the company always decides that whether they have to go for higher debt or higher equity, or what should be the best possible combination in terms of debt and equity. So that is the you could say second point, decision of your capital structure. Capital structure means the composition of your debt and equity. Is it clear, please, everyone? Along with this capital structure, the second point comes around in mind is the cost of raising funds. Cost means the percentage of, you could say, interest or percentage of dividend which you must need to pay to their shareholders. Like as I told you, if you are going for debt arrangement or you could say debt capital, it is compulsory that you need to pay the interest even though the company is not generating profit out of it. But when it comes to equity share capital, they need to pay the dividends to their shareholders. So cost of raising fund is also most important decision, because as I told you, under capital, you could say decision about financing, we have cost of capital, capital structure decision, and the leverages. The three major topic or three major numerical topics which will actually help the finance manager in order to decide the best capital combination in the organization. Okay. The third part which comes under category is selection of sources of finance. Sources means the major, you could say the options for a company in order to generate the fund. It may be bank, it may be, you could say, any bonds, debentures, IPO, even we can say, even the fund from your relative, or you could say own fund which the company is using, or even the partners fund you can generate out of it. Type of source and duration. Duration means the fund is required in the company for the span of time it is required in the organization. So whenever we talk about selection of any source of finance, it should be based on two major aspects. The sources means the input source, and second one is the duration for which the fund is required in the organization. Fourth category is the pattern of investment. Okay. Pattern of investment is basically all about where this particular fund would be deployed, how this fund would be utilized, how this fund would be invested into different avenues. Always remember, whenever the company is planning to arrange any fixed assets in terms of land investment, building, furniture, machinery, any project, any new product, share capital investments, or even any international investment as well. If you talk about, the important thing is that they need to keep in mind these three major principles whenever they are talking about any investment pattern. The first part is safety, profitability, and liquidity. Safety in terms of in case if the company is under losses, or if the company is diluted, or the company closed, whether my money is in the safe hand or not. First part. Profitability is the return which I am generating out of it. And the liquidity, how quickly I can actually encash my, you could say, investment in the form of cash or in the form of cash equivalents. Okay. So always remember, when we discuss about the pattern of investment, the three major points always come in mind. It is about the safety of investment, profitability of the investment, and liquidity of the investment. I hope so. Am I clear with this first 4 points? Please kindly confirm.
Yes, please. Yes.
Point number 5, please. Cash management. Now, if you remember, cash management comes under category of your working capital management. Okay. Now, when we discuss about this working capital management, I told you about the management of your current assets and the current liabilities. The company must need to maintain sufficient amount of cash so that they can meet their contingent liability or their liabilities on day-to-day basis. The important thing is you can see that cash cycle. The cash cycle is basically, if you remember, I think I told you about this working capital cycle. This is a very, very crucial, you could say, aspect about the company's receipts and company's payment. Because as you remember, even though if I'm purchasing some raw material from my supplier, I always purchase on credit. Even if I'm selling those goods to my customer, or you could say to my retailer or wholesaler, I'm giving them on credit. Important thing is that the balance of your creditors and balance of your debtors should be designed in such a manner so that your cash cycle should work in an efficient manner. For example, you purchase some raw material from your creditors with having the credit period of 3 months. Similarly, you are providing to the goods to your debtors with a credit facility of 1 month or 1.5 months. It should not be more than the creditor cycle. Always remember, please, because you are, or you could say, you have a liability or you have an obligation to pay the amount after 3 months or within 3 months to your creditor. So your cycle of cash receipt or cash receivables should be lesser than your bills payable, or you could say your creditor cycle. So always remember in this fourth point that when we talk about this particular topic of your cash management, your cash cycle should be designed in such a manner so that there should not be any imbalance between your creditors and between your debtors. Am I clear with this, please? The cash management.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes, shall we move to the next part?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. The next part which we have, that is implementation of financial controls. Now, I won't go in details right now about all this topic because it's more technical right now. When we discuss about these financial controls, always remember whenever the company is taking any, you could say, financial decisions, or whenever the company is taking any decision in terms of financial policy control or the control over their finances in terms of receivables and the payables, okay, the company is always having certain numerical, you could say, methodology, or you could say quantitative technique, with the help of which they can actually control their finances. These methods are basically, the important one is ratio analysis, break-even point analysis. When we come to, you could say, their cost control management, okay. When we discuss about their working capital management, okay. Even we talk about their cash flow statement. So these are the major, you could say, financial or you could say numerical methods with the help of which the company can actually control, company can actually decide that what type of, you could say, mechanism which they must need to maintain in order to implement this policy. Okay. Second last is all about your uses of various control techniques. Now, control techniques are basically the remedial technique we're talking right now. Now, remedial technique is nothing but whenever the company is basically using any methodology with the help of which they can actually provide the cushions in the company in case of losses, in case of any contingent liability with the company arises, in terms of, you could say, any unexpected event in the company which occurred in terms of theft, in terms of fire, in terms of economic breakdown as well. In all such cases, the company always must need to ready with their plan B, at how the company can overcome, how the company can actually can actually face all such challenges in the market. Okay. And the last one is proper uses of surpluses. Surpluses means whenever the company is generating some profit from the market, they always need to keep in mind that these surpluses should be used in such a manner so that the company may either divide those surpluses or the profit among their shareholders, or even though they can actually retain those profits in the organization for future contingencies. So you can see that this topic we discuss actually, that is proper use of surplus. Either the company can divide the dividend among shareholders, or even they can retain those earnings for all future contingencies or future, you could say, events in the organization. So I hope so these applications are also clear to you. The areas of financial management, the major key areas of consideration when it comes to the financial management methodology. Yes, students. Am I clear with this, please? Kindly confirm.
I have one question, please.
Yeah, please carry on.
Between these retained earnings and dividends. So normally, like the companies like in order to maximize their wealth or the profit, which one in the like the long run, it's like putting into dividends or retaining earnings. So which or when it is done like by the companies, when the company like retains earnings or share it with like in the form of dividends, keeping in mind the long term thing.
Understood, actually. See, basically, like if you remember that the each and every organization having some perpetual life. Okay. For example, if I'm starting you could say a business right now. Let's suppose in 2020 I've started a business. As of now, what is my priority? Is my priority is just to attract more and more investor so that I can actually have the you could say the sufficient amount of capital in the company, or is the company is always you could say in the condition of the maturity stage or the developing stage? Because I think if you remember the life cycle of the company, okay, if the company is actually a startup company, definitely in such a cases the company actually attract more and more investor, and in order to attract the investor, you need to declare the dividend which is being could say provided by the company. Okay, always remember it totally depends on the cycle of the business, or you could say the proportion of the business. As I told you already, like if the company is a startup company, definitely they are in the growth stage right now, or you could say they are at the stage of introduction. We may say introduction stage, the company having some different policies. When the company has actually grown up a bit, they might actually go for some higher retain earning as compared to the equity holders. So always remember, from introduction to mature to growth till maturity, the company's perspective is always to attract as many investors as they can, because this is the stage where the company even can launch their IPO as well. Okay, so always remember it totally depends on the perspective. For example, let's suppose for the next 5 years, if I'm looking after you could say the company is already in the maturity stage and the company is looking after just to launch a new product, or the company actually may face some financial you could say crisis because of certain you could say economic breakdown. In such a cases, company may not attract some investor. They will definitely go for some backup money in the organization. So I hope so. Please always remember these particular decisions regarding whether the company have to go for retained earning or they have to go for dividend declaration. It totally depends on the cycle of the company, in which stage they belong to, or what is their future perspective. Okay, I hope so. Mr. Norbo, am I clear with this?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there any more query, please? Because we are done with this basic and theoretical aspect of your financial management. Yes, students? If it is clear, then I'll give, if it is clear, then we'll move to the next topic, that is capitalization. Shall I proceed?
Yes, yes.
Yes, please. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sure. Thank you so much. Now, the next topic is your capitalization. Okay. Now, first of all, what is capitalization? We need to understand first. Okay. Always remember, the capitalization is basically nothing but the amount of fund which is being required in the company in order to run its business. The amount of fund which is being required by the company in order to run the company in a smooth fashion. Always remember, the capitalization is a process with the help of which the company can actually decide that what type of or what composition of debt and equity which you need to maintain. You can see that the capitalization is the process of determining the quantum of fund that a firm needs to run its business. It is also a process with the help of which the company can actually decide about their share capital and debenture, mean the composition of your debt and equity. Okay, this debt and equity proposition always plays extremely crucial role when it comes to capitalization, because capitalization, if it is higher equity, lower debt, the company is having equity capitalization. If the company is having higher debt as compared to equity, that is called debt capitalization. And both the you could say aspects having its pros and cons when it comes to companies operating activity in a financial year. Okay, always remember the capitalization does not include your reserve and surplus, because the reserve and surplus are the backup money, or you could say the reserve which is available in the company for the any future contingencies in the business. Okay. Now there are basically two major part of capitalization, which is called your, because theory is not a part of a syllabus. Yes, this is called the type of capitalization. Okay. The first capitalization is called your undercapitalization, overcapitalization, or watered capitalization. Okay. Now we'll discuss one by one all this particular topic. Okay. The first I'm discussing right now, which is called the overcapitalization. Okay. So you can see that overcapitalization in any organization is basically the capital amount which is excessive in nature, which is being not required in the company. For example, you are running a business right now, and right now the business capital is 30 lakh rupees. Okay. But the requirement in the company is only 20 lakh rupees or 25 lakh rupees. The extra 5 lakh, which is available in the company, which is not of any use, that is nothing but that 5 lakh rupees extra in the company is actually increasing the cost of capital in the organization. So overcapitalization is nothing but whenever the company is having excess capital as compared to the required or the desired capital which the company is required in the market as per the given condition, that is called the overcapitalization. Am I clear with this? The requirement is only 25 lakh, but the capital is available is 30 lakh. So 5 lakh excessive is, which basically you can say it's the idle fund, and that idle fund is increasing the cost of capital for the organization.
Is it the profit, or what's the difference between overcapitalization and profit of the company?
See, profit is altogether different concept. Okay. Capitalization is basically all about the company's capital in form of debt and equity. For example, you are running a business right now, and as of now for the business, the requirement of fund or requirement of capital is only 30 lakh rupees. But in the business, you have 40 lakh or 50 lakh rupees. That extra, which is above 30 lakh, is basically nothing but increasing the cost of capital in the organization. Whether it may be from the debt or whether it may be from equity, in both the cases, it may increase your cost of capital. Because somehow you're liable to pay interest, you're liable to pay dividend to their shareholders, but for extra 20 lakh or extra 10 lakh rupees above 30 lakh, if you have, that is called overcapitalization.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope so it is clear, na?
Sir, company can
please, thank you.
expand their business.
Yes, Mukund, please tell me.
Sir, company can expand business.
Yes, see, company can expand business. Yeah, I understood your query actually. If the company having some excessive capital, but for example, Mukund, like in the 2021, if the company do not have any plan for expansion, or for example, the company do not have any plan for the next 3 years, and the capital is excessively available, definitely that excessive capital is increasing the cost. Once or whenever it is required, at the moment of time, if you are raising the capital, that is quite, you could say, profitable. Unless and until basically for the next 2 or 3 years, when that fund is not required, the company is unnecessarily paying the cost on that. Definitely company can go for expansion, but once it is required, at that time there should be some capital, you could say, increment in the organization. I hope so it is clear, Mukund.
Okay, sir.
Same with the case of undercapitalization. Okay, when the requirement of the capital in the company is below the desired level. Again, the same example, like if the capital required is 30 lakh and the company is having only 20 lakh, or you could say they have a lack of fund available in the company. In such a case, undercapitalization basically, again, one of the you could say important aspects, when the company's desired capital is 30 lakh, but the capital which is available in the company is only 20 lakh, 25 lakh, which is below the desired one. In such a cases, the company may suffer certain, you could say, financial crunches or company may suffer some, you could say, financial, you could say, burdens in the long run when the company is under capitalization.
Sir, previously you said that company can bring IPOs
Yes.
to collect money. So, sir, if the company is in undercapitalization, so they can take money from IPO or right issues.
Definitely. Because they can go for debt increments. They can go for equity increments. It totally depends on company's options.
So, sir, if company can manage it with collecting money from for collecting funds from IPO or right issue or debt, so, sir, why they will come in under capitalization?
No. Actually, like what happened, Mukund, sometimes what happened in the company, for example, if you are having the capital of 100 crore right now, but suddenly what happened, your equity shareholders will withdraw your money from the capital. Suddenly you are at the stage under capitalization because your capital is not as per desired level. In such a cases, you might go for some new issues. You might go for some new options to your shareholders in such a cases. Because whenever you could say it totally depends on the market condition, in what consideration is the company is dealing with.
Sir, but it stands on company goodwill also.
Definitely it will affect. Like you can see that the cases of, you could say, PNB, even the recent case of Yes Bank, recently even the Yes Bank case, if you remember, in that, I think 5 to 6 months back, the investors will withdraw their money immediately from the Yes Bank shares. Okay, so their capital amount basically drastically lowered down because of such cases.
So, but SBI, but the government, State Bank of India have renewed it.
Yeah, later on they did that, but at the moment of, like, once that crisis arises, if you remember, like in the case of
Yes, sir.
Sahara as well, in the case of PNB as well, okay, in all such cases, undercapitalization may be a situation where, because of any, you could say, economic breakdown, or because of any contingency arise in the company, in such a cases, it may be possible that the capitalization of the company may be below the desired level of the capital required.
Sir, according to recently stats, you can see that all banks that NPAs are increasing.
Hmm.
So, sir, मतलब maybe all, मतलब as per your opinion, sir, all bank will be under capitalization. Because sir, if there are bank are coming showing their funds are in loss.
See, even if you remember the recent budget, I think, which is being declared by yesterday by finance manager, the bank is always being supported or being cushioned by the RBI or by the government of the country. Okay, even though if they might have suffered some NPAs or the losses, because government is coming up with new policies, some new regulations, some stringent actions against, you could say, also you could say, account holders. The important thing is that, still, if you can see that even though there are, you could say, more transparencies, even though there are, you could say, more stringent laws nowadays, still the banks having NPAs. Okay, like when we talk about such, you could say, consideration, on what ground you can create the thumb rule to give the loan to your share, to the, you could say, the lenders in the market. Okay, so somehow, see, it is basically more debatable, or you could say, such a topic on which we can discuss actually on a particular day, that what policy the company, the government need to introduce in order to cope up this NPA problem in the country.
Yes, sir.
So because there are a lot of loopholes, Mukund, actually,
Yes.
in legal aspect, when it comes to operational aspect as well. So there are a lot of loopholes in the banking channels nowadays, but still the government is trying their level best in order to, you could say, cover up all those, you could say, loopholes which are available in the system right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, sir. Thank you so much, Mukund. Nice discussion with you. So is there any query regarding what is capitalization, under and over capitalization?
No, please. No.
So let's move to the last one, that is called the watered capitalization. Okay, and then we'll wind up our session now. Okay. So when we talk about this particular last stage, which is called the watered capitalization, okay? Watered capitalization is nothing but when we talk about the company's dilution stage, or when we talk about the company, when the book value of the company is equal to the market value. Okay, like if you remember, like whenever the company is basically assessing, whenever the company is evaluating their realizable value in the market, realizable value means when the company diluted, or when the, you could say, company is basically in terms of your closing it down their business. Important thing is that the company's market value should be you could say equal to, because each and every company always want that their market value should be equal to your book value. Okay, but if the market value of the company is less than what is being expected value is the company is looking after, that condition is called your watered capitalization. Because, like for example, if my company's you could say market value, let's suppose if I'm assessing right now is 10 crore rupees. Okay, it is my valuation. But when we come to the, you could say, actual market condition, what are the different, you could say, investors, or you could say when you could say the proposed buyer, those who want to buy those companies, they are actually evaluating around 8 crore or 9 crore rupees. In such a cases, all those conditions, when the company's market value is less than the company's book value, these conditions basically termed as your watered capitalization. It may be because of company's goodwill, it may be because of company's stock, it may be because of company's offering in the market. It may be any reason. Because of that, the company's market value is always less than their book value or expected value from the perspective of the owners. I hope so. Am I clear with this as well?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So that is all from my side for the day, and we have completed this theory part of this particular topic. Now make sure in the next session, that is tomorrow, we will start our first numerical topic, that is capital budgeting, which is the most important topic of your syllabus. Okay, so
Sir, can you share your contact number?
Sure, definitely. I'm just sharing my details with you over here. You can contact me. And like as per the schedule which we have, definitely we can go for. You can contact me on this, and you can mention my email address as well if you want to contact me. Okay. Yes, student. Is there any query to anyone? Please let me know.
So what will be the correct time to contact you today?
See, usually like my schedule is quite hectic, actually very busy actually. You can do one thing, you can just drop your messages on my WhatsApp or my Instagram, or even you can drop a mail. It would be far better. And whenever if I find the time and if the query is required to be discussed over call, definitely I'll give you a call from my side.
Okay, so sir, I will contact you on WhatsApp today.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you, sir.